and welcome to another episode of Exploring Standards. I am your host, Jess, and today I'm very excited to have Juliana Wood back on the show today. Julia, how are you today?
I'm great, Jess. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. So for those who are listening for the first time, Juliana has been on the podcast very recently, and we were talking about ISO 22252, which is the market research standard. And we did a fantastic episode that kind of took a real good overview of the standard. So if you haven't listened to that podcast yet, please make sure you go and have a listen, because that's really going to set you up for what we're talking about in today's episode. So Juliana is the Managing Director and Director of Certifications at CIRQ. And our episode today, we're going to be looking at the top non-conformances and the trends that we've seen in ISO 22252. But before we get into that, Juliana, would you like to just sort of tell our audiences, if they haven't listened to the last podcast, a little bit about yourself and CIRQ?
Absolutely. Well, it's nice to see everybody again. Hope you enjoyed the first pod. If you haven't yet, do what Jess says. Go check it out. It really sets you up for a good overview with some deep dive on the standard. I think it's a good place to start. So CIRQ is the Certification Institute for Research Quality. We are ANAB accredited, and saving you all from that alphabet soup, that simply means that CIRQ holds a dual accreditation from the American National Standards Institute National Accreditation Board. And what that effectively means is that we are third-party audited annually. So we go through the same thing that all of our clients do. CIRQ has been around for about 13 years now, and we have clients pretty much all over the globe. We certify to, like Jess said, ISO 20252, the Global Market Research Standard, and ISO 27001, Information Security Management Systems.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So if you're thinking, what is ISO 22252, please go back and listen to that last episode, because that, as you said, is going to give it the real big overview and a little bit of a deep dive, because today's episode, we are focusing on the non-conformances that we have found and the trends that we have found. So Juliana, can you give us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so Jess gave me some great homework to go back and look at the last year and a half or so of our clients' audit reports. And this is a variety of audit types, so recertifications and surveillances and new clients. And so basically what I did is I kind of pulled the top, I think 4 to 5 is really what it worked out to be. Non-conformances, we also refer to them as findings, because there are categories of non-conformances. And so we're looking to kind of take a little bit of a deep dive and drill down into each one of these that may be able to help you as you go through and implement the standard and for your organization, and look for things that can kind of save you from going through these findings.
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a couple of these episodes now for other standards. So we've done 27,001 and 14,001, and they've been really, really popular. So really excited to get into this. So let's go with the first one. And it is 4.4 subcontractors.
Yeah, so this is the number one area where a client, and again, this is the way that CIRQ handles non-conformances. We either do them as an area of concern, and if they are grave enough, we bubble that up to a full-blown non-conformance. So let's dive into 4.4 subcontractors. So the standard is pretty clear on the requirement for organizations to document their subcontractor relationships. And effectively, there are 3 ways in which this requirement can be met. And they're very straightforward. And as we talked about sort of last time at the last pod, don't overthink the requirements. They are pretty straightforward. You don't have to do anything Herculean to be compliant. So let's dive into this. So in 4.4.2, there are 3 areas where you can create a good subcontractor policy and procedure and relationship. So the first is just easy, a documented agreement for work, also known as a contract, that is in line with ISO 20252. And I would relate this clause back to 4.5 in client reporting, and that gives you all of the different aspects that should be part of your client arrangement, all the way from the beginning of work all the way through to reporting. The second area for easy compliance is just documented evidence that you, as the organization that's going through a certification audit, is confirming that there's been checking, validation, and information security requirements, that they have been met with your subcontractors, that they are fulfilling the requirements that you are setting for them. And then the third, and this is point C in 4.4.2. This one often can be considered a little expensive, but the industry is sort of changing towards this particular requirement, and that is an audit. Basically, what that means is that your subcontractors are also ISO 20252 certified. If your subcontractors are certified and you are certified, boom, you have met the requirement for this particular clause. And because all of the clauses we'll be talking about today are in the core, these are required. You have to have a process and procedure in place for your subcontractor relationships.
Okay, fantastic. I think the key part that you just said at the end there was that this is all the core, isn't it? That
Absolutely.
we're looking at today. Yeah, cool. So next we have clause 4.6, which is management review and improvement.
Right. So this one tends to trip folks up because, and I'm getting a little ahead here, but there's a reason for that. So 4.6 is management review and improvement, and 4.7 is internal audit. These two clauses in the core are interrelated. And what that means is that when you go through a implementation for a certification audit to fulfill the requirement of reporting out to your management and bringing up items for improvement, a big part of what informs that management review is the results of your internal audit. And I'll go in a little bit deeper on internal audit here in a moment, but really the management review is the compliance team, the quality manager, the person that's kind of leading the charge for this effort within their organization. They are reporting at least once a year, that's the minimum requirement, to leadership about the improvements that have been made to the research process management system as it is aligned to 20252. That's really what you're looking for. All of the improvements that have been made over a year and reported out to leadership, and looking for their feedback as well. That's a big key because they also might have like, oh, hey, what are you guys thinking about in this area for subcontractors? Could we improve that area? How all of these things are interrelated.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. Now, our next one, as you just said, feeds very nicely into it, which is clause 4.7, internal audits.
Right. So one of the major findings here that we get a lot is that while the standard is very straightforward and it effectively says that an organization must create an internal audit program. And what that means is something very simple, that there are individuals within the organization that are trained to perform internal audits. And that is an effort that is intended to not only inform your management review and improvement, but also to help the organization for its external audits. And one of the biggest areas is that where we see findings is that either the internal audit program isn't fully thought through. It's pretty straightforward as far as the requirement goes. I see a lot of companies that, and this can be a little tricky here. There's no requirement that says you can't work with an outside provider like Ascent to do your internal audit. But a lot of times organizations are missing a real good opportunity for improvement to take on that role themselves as internal auditing. And that's just the requirement. There's no right or wrong way other than to be compliant to the program. And the other area where we see some areas for improvement, and not a full-blown non-conformance finding, and that is the internal audit program isn't completely robust, right? It's very high level. It doesn't dive into all of the requirements within the standard. And that's really the point here, that the internal audit program is informed by the requirements of 20252. So an organization doesn't have to go, oh my gosh, how do I create an internal audit program? What am I auditing against? You're auditing against the standard if you are going for audit or for certification. And it's an internal process that informs the external process that also informs the management review and improvement. So it's all interrelated. It's all interrelated. And I promise it's really not it's not terribly complicated when you look at the requirement and you see that how all these requirements again inform the other ones. So if you are good with your internal auditing, you're going to have great external audits, and your management reviews are going to be spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Right. Moving on to number 4, we have 4.8, which is legal requirements.
Yeah. So a big finding here, and we see this a lot, is companies don't have a full active list of all of the regulatory, legislative laws that dictate how they do their research. So very easy one, right? If you are in Europe, it's GDPR. There's probably a few others. If you're in the US, it might be something like your local, your state privacy law, since there's no federal privacy law yet. If you're in California, you've got CCPA. If you deal with companies, you're doing maybe market research in the pharma space, you've got HIPAA considerations. There's also FedRAMP and all of these different things. And really what the auditors tend to find is they find the list, they find that the client meets the basic requirement for 4.8, but they don't have all of those different legislations listed. And so a really good way to knock this requirement right out of the park is to have an area on your website and have hyperlinks to all of the laws that are relevant to your local, state, country, county, whatever level that allows you to be compliant on a regulatory level effectively. This one isn't meant to be overthought. This one really is just a list when it comes down to it. Yeah.
That's very interesting. He said it's not to be overthought. Like legal requirements can be quite scary, isn't it? It's like,
absolutely. Yeah, we get companies that overthink it. And what the easiest way to deal with this is really just a quick statement. Market research company XYZ complies with the following, and then it's literally just a list of hyperlinks with the name of the type of legislation, and also making sure that it's reviewed annually, right? Because a lot of this stuff is changing all the time. Yeah.
I can imagine that's where a lot of clients do mess up, because you're just not reviewing it, and then obviously things change and you're just not up to date. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we're going to go into our final one, which is clause 4.1, which is statement of applicability.
Yeah, so this one, again, I can't say it enough, is don't overthink it. So in 4.1.1, the standard gives effectively like not quite a blueprint, but kind of like the recipe to write a perfect SOA. And I think that, one of the things when I went through and kind of did this document review over the last year and a half is that companies didn't have fully hit the two big points, which is both high leveled and detailed, right? So high level about the where the organization is located, the country or countries in which it provides work for its clients, and then the type of services it provides. And then the detailed part is the annex attestations, the services, the methodologies that the organization is attesting to as part of ISO 20252, all of the requirements within the annex structure. And so really, because the SOA is the organization's declaration to its external clients, these are the services to which we are certified and to which we offer our clients. This needs to be really polished. And we see there's areas to improve here. I've never seen a full-blown non-conformance, because a company cannot become certified if it doesn't have a statement of applicability. It has to. That's your scope statement, right? Your scope of certification. But not seeing them as polished as they could be. And it's really not that difficult, because, again, the standard has really company XYZ. It gives kind of boilerplate text as a guide. So, yeah. And then what I wanted to say about all of these these clauses that we've been talking about, these happen in the core, because every single company must have processes and procedures in place for the core. There's no pass on the size of your company. If you're a 3-person operation or a 1,000-person operation, you have to have these 8 clauses of the core of 20252 accounted for: policies, procedures, and descriptions of your processes. The annexes are different, so findings over there are very specific to clients, where non-conformances kind of occur because every business is different.
Okay, that's fabulous. Thank you so much. Any final words before we sign off?
No, other than, if you have any questions about ISO 20252 audit and certification and what that would look like for your company, reach out to Ascent. They have a great team of consultants who can help you with your implementation. If you are considering that certification is where you want to be, reach out to me at CIRQ. I'm always here and happy to answer any question that you might have so that you can become a certified ISO 20252 company.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think our listeners are going to really appreciate this episode. Breaking down the top non-conformances or the top findings is going to be really, really helpful for them. Right. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the show, Juliana. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thanks, Jess.
If you have enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the podcast. And we'll be back with an episode in a couple of weeks.